Hey everybody, so a few days ago on Friday, I put out a video podcast blog article about the bulletin that Visa put out about cash discounting and how that cash discounting is no longer compliant with Visa rules as it's currently represented in our industry, where we're doing things like adding a service fee at the register and then, in some way or shape or form, we're eliminating that service fee when someone pays with cash. So Visa said in no uncertain terms, that's not compliant with Visa rules. Now, I had intended that primarily for owners of ISOs, executives at acquiring companies, but of course, thousands of individual agents saw the videos and read the post as well, which is great for them to be informed. However, for those of you that are individual agents, that probably left you with a burning question, which is, okay, James, so should I still sell cash discounting because now you're saying it's not compliant anymore with Visa rules? What should I do? Well, I'm going to tell you some tips today of things to do moving forward. Before I get to that, let me make my disclaimer, which is I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. So if you take action based on this information and that action causes you to have financial harm in some way, I'm not responsible for that. This is just my opinion based on the information that we have currently available in the industry. So now that I have my disclaimer out of the way, my lawyer will be happy. Let's talk about what we should do next. So number one, my advice is follow the advice of your ISO and your acquirer in the days and weeks to come, okay? One thing that the Visa bulletin did make very clear is it did say that if these cash discount programs continue, it said that the acquirers could face non-compliance action. It did not say the agents could face non-compliance action. It did not say that the merchants could face non-compliance action. Okay, now there are some isolated incidents out there where merchants have been charged fees, and you may see stuff about that online of like, oh, my merchant got a fine for cash discounting. Now, I don't know about all those situations. All the ones I've seen have been situations where the ISO did something absolutely ridiculously stupid. Usually what it is there's actually a way to code transactions as surcharges in a terminal, and they literally were coding them as surcharges and sending them through on check and debit cards, which is patently illegal. So, outside of that, I've not heard of any legitimate cash discount programs. When I say legitimate now, I guess that's a fluid term, but any cash discount programs that I'm familiar with that are mainstream where merchants are getting notifications or fines or anything. I'm not aware of anything like that. I'm certainly not aware of any agents having any issues with it whatsoever. And so basically when Visa put their bulletin out, they knew exactly what they were doing. What they were doing is they're trying to scare the acquirers, which are the big companies, so that the acquirers will do the enforcement for them. It'll be the acquirer's problem to reach out and say, you can't do cash discounting, and reach out to other ISOs and kind of trickle down this directive. So as a result, my advice is follow their lead. It may take them 3 or 4 weeks to get a new action plan in place. And so just follow their advice. There's no reason to, go nuts about it. So I guess to summarize all that, my first piece of advice is go sell. Okay, if you were selling cash discounting last week, sell cash discounting this week. It's not like, Visa can't expect to put a bulletin out on Friday and then Monday morning this massive industry just ceases to exist. It takes a little time. Visa understands that. The acquirers understand that. Everybody's working diligently to plan their next action step. But frankly, this is a change that's going to take a little while because, they're going to have to hear from the higher ups. The acquirers haven't had a chance for their legal team to put together notifications. And so as of right now, this bulletin was sent primarily to acquirers, and so it's up to the acquirers to take the appropriate action. Then it'll be up to the ISOs, the independent sales organizations, to take action, and then it'll be up to you to take action, and they'll tell you that. So the good news is, keep doing what you're doing. You're fine. Get out there, sell, make money, get merchant accounts, and everything like that. And so, that's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice is to think. And I know this is something that salespeople don't hear a lot. You don't get people to tell you all the time, what you should do today? You should really take some time to think. No, I'm in sales. I sell, I move, call, I visit people, I sell stuff. Take a little time to think, okay? I'm going to give you my thoughts about how I think this is going to play out, but take some time to think about it yourself. How are merchants reacting to cash discounting in your market? Do they love it? Do they hate it? How are they reacting to surcharging? Have you talked about that at all? Are you in a state that allows surcharging, which I'll talk about in a minute? How is it working in your market? Well, how do you think this is going to end up in your market? What are merchants going to want? Are they going to want cash discounting? Are they going to want something different? What's going to happen? What about your ISO? What do you think they're going to do? How are they, do you know anybody there? What are they going to do? You need to take a little time. I'm not saying during your prospecting time, but this evening or, take a little time, sit down and think about it a little bit. What do you think is going to happen? And So let's talk through it a little bit. I wrote down some notes, and I'm going to go through them with you. And again, I've got this is a blog article, so just go to ccsalespro.com and read the blog article. I've got a lot more detailed information. I'm just trying to summarize it for you here in video form. So, now that Visa's made their move, what's going to happen? Well, I'll give you some tips, and then you can take some time to think about it. Number one, I think that I've said this many, many times, 24 to 36 months from now, maybe 48 months, all of this is going to be surcharging anyway. I've said that since the beginning. I knew that cash discounting was going to be on Visa's radar screen. I knew Visa was going to try to eliminate it. So none of this is really a big surprise to anybody that was in the know. Visa acted maybe a little sooner than anticipated, but not much. And so it's not really that big of a thing. So one of the things you first have to realize, a couple of big components. The first thing you want to watch for, and I'll obviously put a video out about it, so keep tuned in, but one of the acquirers, are they going to sue Visa? Is one of the big acquirers, are they going to realize, wow, this cash discounting thing is super profitable, we're going to stand our ground and we're going to sue Visa? Now, if that happens, then all bets are off, because then cash discounting is probably going to continue indefinitely while that court case is ongoing, because even though Visa came out with that bulletin, the Visa rules, all that bulletin was Visa's opinion about how their rules apply to cash discounting, because their rules don't apply directly to cash discounting. And so they're saying, well, our rules apply in this way. This is how we see it. But if somebody sees it differently, then they see it differently. Visa's a private company, not a government agency. So this isn't like they sent out a new law. There's a rule that a private company has about how other private companies can engage with them based on this agreement that was signed about the Visa rules. And so it's not like you can't challenge that. And if that was challenged by one of the big acquirers, then all bets are off. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I honestly, I really don't know. I would be surprised if it did, to be honest. But if one of the big acquirers really stands up to Visa and says no, then all bets are off. Then probably cash discounting is going to keep going for a while. If that doesn't happen, I also wouldn't be surprised if things got shut down pretty quick, like 60 to 90 days. The acquirers have reached out to most of the ISOs, and everybody that's doing cash discounting, they can't do it anymore. So what's going to happen in that case? Well, in that case, I think we're going to see surging, there you go, pun, a little faster than we had anticipated. So let me read you a couple things here. So the last time I checked, Colorado, Connecticut, Kansas, Maine, Massachusetts, New York, and Oklahoma do not allow surcharging based on state laws. So, there's already, a case nationally that said surcharging should be allowed, and to not allow it is you're going against, First Amendment free speech stuff. Those states still have state rules. Now, New York right now has a court case that's trying to overthrow that, and so could get overthrown. If you're in one of those states, though, you have a difficult decision, because if your merchants can't do cash discounting, well, they really are going to have to go back to traditional processing, okay? If you're in one of the other 43 states, you can offer surcharging. So it's not as big of a deal, because worst case scenario, you sell somebody on cash discounting today, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks from now, you come back and say, hey, you know what? We're still going to do the same thing, passing the cost on to the consumer. We're still going to save you a lot of money. But look at this bulletin Visa gave us. You hand them the bulletin. This just came out. We didn't know the implications of it, but it turns out that we can't do it exactly this way. What we have to do is we can only add the fee to credit card transactions, not check card transactions, right? And so that may happen. And if it does, then you just go in, you can save them 60% instead of 100%. So summarizing this article, number one, don't freak out. A change happened. It's something we all knew was going to happen anyway. Keep doing what you're doing. Your big value proposition is not cash discounting. Your big value proposition is you. You are willing to go sell. You're willing to make calls. You're willing to go out in the field. That's what very few people are willing to do. Don't stop doing what you do best. Go sell. Then stay in contact with your acquirer, with your ISO. Just make sure you know what's going on. As long as you know what's going on and you're in the loop, stay tuned into our podcast this next week on Friday. Make sure you're on our podcast, because we're going to be talking to Cardex CEO Jonathan Razi about surcharging. So my name is James Shepard. Hopefully this information was a help to you. Hope you have a terrific week.